different kind of look at life. There are many different roads and many different curves. Some are cliffs, and some are straight roads, and it's a question of how you deal with them. New allegations have set the royal world on fire, claiming Sarah Ferguson engaged in a secret affair with an American lover while she was pregnant, and the details are more explosive than anyone imagined. Behind closed doors, whispers of hidden meetings, forbidden letters, and scandalous encounters are resurfacing, threatening to rewrite everything we thought we knew about her past. Palace insiders are stunned, and the public is scrambling for answers. So, could this shocking revelation finally expose the truth behind one of the royals' most controversial chapters? Stay tuned, because the fallout is just beginning. The marriage meant to distract. Sarah Ferguson's entry into the royal world was nothing short of dramatic, arriving at a moment of turbulence and uncertainty. The monarchy was navigating one of its most delicate periods. The marriage of King Charles and Princess Diana was visibly crumbling, casting a shadow over the institution. Into this climate stepped Ferguson, a woman whose selection as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's bride seemed guided as much by strategy as by romance. Her vivacious personality, striking relatability, and magnetic charm were precisely what the palace needed. A young, vibrant figure capable of diverting public attention from scandal. "I'm the generational bridge 'cause I'm still very young, in case you hadn't realized." Yeah, exactly. And injecting a sense of life into an institution long associated with formality and restraint. From the earliest days, Ferguson captivated both the public and the press. She radiated warmth and approachability, her laughter genuine, her gestures unpolished, but irresistibly human. Photographs of the wedding day captured a sense of joy and spontaneity, a contrast to the carefully curated images the monarchy usually projected. The public was enchanted by her freshness, her energy, and her openness. A duchess who seemed delightfully real, unburdened by the rigid rules of palace life. Yet behind the gilded doors, Ferguson's presence stirred unease. The palace, steeped in centuries of protocol and quiet authority, struggled to accommodate her forthright style. Her humor was often deemed too casual, her fashion choices too bold, and her appetite for attention far larger than the institution's tradition allowed. Sarah Ferguson's most endearing qualities, her warmth, friendliness, and natural charm, also became her greatest obstacles within royal life. Her bright, open personality instantly captured public admiration, yet it clashed violently with an institution built on silence, caution, and unwavering self-discipline. Long stretches of Prince Andrew's naval postings left her wandering the vast, ornate halls of royal estates, isolated and deprived of meaningful companionship. The monarchy demanded a beautiful, reserved duchess who quietly fit into centuries of tradition. But Ferguson was born for laughter, expression, and living vividly. From her very first steps into royal society, the tension was palpable. A vivacious, spirited woman trapped in a gilded cage, struggling to reconcile her freedom-loving nature with the strict expectations surrounding her. And we went into this nightclub, and she was very good as her costume. This period of her life, from the dazzling wedding day to her early struggles within palace walls, laid the foundation for a storm that would later engulf her. Ferguson was a woman unsuited to silence, entering a world defined by restraint, her charm, unpolished energy, and refusal to be invisible foreshadowed conflicts that would become public scandals. She was admired, envied, and quietly admonished in equal measure. The collision of personality and institution set the stage for one of the most fascinating and turbulent chapters in modern royal history. A chapter that would reveal the limits of tradition when confronted by uncontainable charisma. Sarah's wedding was meant to distract the world from royal troubles. But did it really succeed? Or did it unleash a storm far worse than the image the monarchy hoped to protect? Now, let's uncover the affair that preceded the explosion: forbidden bonds and royal fallout. The moment Sarah Ferguson met American businessman Steve Wyatt marked a turning point that would forever alter the course of her life. Unlike the stiff, formal figures that filled her royal days, Wyatt exuded warmth, confidence, and an ease completely unaffected by her royal title. He saw her as a person, not a public image, offering the attention, understanding, and companionship that she had long been denied during Prince Andrew's extended absences. In a world constrained by protocol and rigid expectation, Wyatt became a rare refuge, a space where she could simply exist, unjudged and unrestrained. Their connection ignited quickly. What began as a friendly conversation soon deepened into something far more intimate and emotionally charged. Sources suggest that Ferguson found in Wyatt a reassurance she had longed for, someone who acknowledged her feelings, valued her individuality. I love tea. Now, I'm from the South, though. We like sweet tea on ice," and treated her with a human warmth absent in her isolated life behind palace walls. The emotional bond that formed between them was no fleeting whim. It developed into a romantic entanglement. Even as Ferguson carried her second child, Princess Eugenie, in that delicate state when vulnerability and longing were heightened, Wyatt became both a confidant and a sanctuary, offering a sense of closeness and understanding that the Duchess had struggled to find within her marriage. As their relationship unfolded, whispers and rumors began to circulate. The press, ever vigilant for scandal, noted Ferguson's sudden companionship with Wyatt and speculated on the nature of their closeness. For the palace, these rumors were alarming, but it was a single photograph that transformed speculation into public outrage. Wyatt was pictured with the young Princess Beatrice, the Duchess's first child, in an image that made headlines worldwide. The photograph conveyed a message that no words could soften. Ferguson had brought her child into the orbit of a man outside the royal family, a breach of the unspoken codes of royal conduct. That one image sent shock waves through the monarchy. What had begun as subtle tension now became a full-blown crisis, leaving her marriage exposed and fragile. The picture acted as a catalyst, turning whispered gossip into front-page news and accelerating the unraveling of her relationship with Prince Andrew. The foundations of her early married life, already weakened by distance, isolation, and incompatible expectations, began to crumble. This turning point not only highlighted the vulnerability and longing that drove Ferguson's choices, but also set the stage for even greater disasters to follow. It marked the moment when private desire collided with public scrutiny, revealing how fragile her position had become. In a single flash, the Duchess's personal world and royal obligations collided, foreshadowing a scandal that would resonate for decades and forever define her place in modern royal history. Sarah Ferguson was reported to have had an affair with an American businessman while pregnant with her second child. But could there be any justification for such a scandal? And is it something anyone could accept? Now, let's delve into Sarah Ferguson's struggle to survive within the gilded cage of royalty. Loneliness behind palace walls. Behind the bright smiles captured by photographers and the carefully staged appearances, Ferguson navigated a landscape defined by absence, strict protocols, and relentless scrutiny. Prince Andrew's naval career required him to be away for months at a time, leaving the Duchess alone in the vast corridors of royal estates, surrounded by expectations she had never encountered before. The palace, an institution steeped in centuries of tradition and hierarchy, offered little warmth to those who did not conform perfectly to its rhythms. Ferguson's vivacious personality, once celebrated outside, became a source of friction inside as her energy and openness clashed with the quiet discipline the monarchy demanded. Isolation soon became the rhythm of her life, settling over her days like a heavy fog. Her husband's visits were rare and painfully short, mere weeks scattered across an entire year. In those moments together, she longed for closeness, comfort, and a sense of belonging. Yet, royal rules tightened around her like invisible chains. She was barred from joining Andrew on many of his postings, robbed of the shared experiences that might have softened the growing emotional gap. Instead, silence and distance filled the spaces where connection should have lived. Even the simplest displays of independence were questioned, limited, or quietly forbidden. The Duchess, naturally lively and full of spirit, soon realized she was living inside an invisible cage built from strict rules and rigid expectations. Every move she made, every word she spoke, yes. And would he come and visit you in the flattened lavender garden was examined and amplified under the palace's unblinking gaze, turning small mistakes into public offenses. Prince Philip's disapproval added another layer of pressure, a constant reminder of the weight of tradition and the importance of maintaining the monarchy's image. Ferguson's choices, even seemingly minor gestures, were interpreted as breaches of decorum, intensifying her sense of restlessness and emotional deprivation. While the public remained enchanted by the Duchess's charm, the private reality was starkly different. The palace demanded invisibility, it required compliance, it expected her to disappear into a world of silent obedience. Yet Ferguson, by her nature, resisted confinement. Her spirit, once lauded in the press, clashed repeatedly with the rigid rules of royal life, creating invisible but widening cracks in her emotional foundation. These early experiences, loneliness, restriction, and the pressure to suppress her identity, planted the seeds for later turbulence. They illuminate the psychological strains that shaped Ferguson's decisions, her vulnerabilities, and ultimately the controversies that would define her public life. Oh, wit, charm, yes, probably, yes, and the red hair. In the shadows of formal dinners and staged photographs, the Duchess's inner turmoil grew, a quiet storm waiting to break. By exploring the gaps between appearance and reality, this chapter exposes the emotional landscape behind the glamour, revealing how isolation, unfulfilled needs, and institutional pressure left Ferguson both vulnerable and primed for the scandals that would later shock the world. Sarah struggled with the loneliness of her husband's absences and the strict royal rules. But what unfolded when she experienced a taste of freedom beyond the palace rules? And how did the royal family respond to her actions? Now let's unravel the scandal that rocked the world and ignited royal fury, the toe-sucking affair and public ruin. The infamous topless holiday photographs and the toe-sucking images that erupted across newspapers, magazines, and television screens worldwide sent shock waves through the royal family and the public alike. These images humiliated Sarah Ferguson in ways few could have imagined. Striking at the very heart of an institution built on centuries of discretion, composure, and carefully maintained appearances. Once celebrated for her warmth and approachable charm, the Duchess suddenly became a lightning rod for scrutiny, ridicule, and relentless public judgment. What should have been a private, dignified separation from Prince Andrew instead exploded into an international spectacle, leaving no corner untouched by scandal or gossip. The fallout was immediate and severe. Reports suggest the Queen was deeply saddened by the images, viewing them as a personal and institutional betrayal. Prince Philip's fury was expressed in a sharply worded letter, underscoring the extent of royal outrage and emphasizing the unprecedented shame the family faced. For Sarah Ferguson, the consequences were profound, and we went into this nightclub, and she was very good as her costume. Her public persona, once lively and approachable, became synonymous with scandal and controversy. Tabloid headlines sensationalized every detail. Her missteps magnified, and the Duchess was transformed into a figure of international mockery. The humiliation did not end with the images themselves. Ferguson's post-divorce life became increasingly complex, marked by financial difficulties, questionable business ventures, and associations that drew further public scrutiny. Sources indicate that she relied on allies who were often dubious, and her attempts to navigate the world outside royal protection frequently led to additional controversies. Compounding her troubles was the enduring shadow of her connection to Jeffrey Epstein, which resurfaced periodically, reigniting media interest and tarnishing her reputation even further. In the years after her divorce, Sarah Ferguson's life unfolded like a series of missteps under the glaring spotlight of the public eye. Every choice, from personal relationships to attempts at independence, was scrutinized relentlessly. Once admired for charm and warmth, she became a cautionary figure, embodying the dangers of fame without discretion in the unforgiving world of royalty. Financial troubles, social missteps, and emotional struggles were magnified by the media, turning private hardships into global spectacle. Her life became a vivid illustration of how visibility can both elevate and devastate. This period ultimately defined Ferguson's post-marriage existence, highlighting the stark contrast between her early charm and the tumultuous reality she faced after leaving Prince Andrew. The topless holiday photos and toes-sucking scandal were not mere episodes of embarrassment. They were transformative moments that irrevocably altered public perception. Her life, once vibrant and celebrated, became emblematic of royal vulnerability, human error, and the devastating consequences when personal choices collide with institutional expectations. This chapter illuminates not only the magnitude of the humiliation, but also the enduring consequences that shaped the Duchess's trajectory in the decades that followed. Sarah's marriage paid the price for her scandalous images, but how deep was her affair with Wyatt, and what do analysts say about the whole saga? Now, let's dive into the fallout from Sarah Ferguson's most controversial and talked about affair, the love that shook a marriage. Biographer Lee emphasized that Steve Wyatt played a pivotal role in the unraveling of Sarah Ferguson's marriage to Prince Andrew. According to Lee, while Andrew had once been Ferguson's closest confidant and remained a loyal friend even after their separation, Wyatt held a far more profound place in her heart. He was not merely a companion. He was, in Lee's words, the love of her life. The connection between Ferguson and Wyatt was intense, immediate, and deeply personal. A stark contrast to the distant, duty-bound relationship she had endured within the royal household, and how right she was. And today we talk about Lisa Marie. We look at Priscilla. Lee's accounts also revealed a detail that shocked many. Ferguson had introduced Wyatt to her eldest daughter. Such a gesture underscored the seriousness of the relationship and highlighted how deeply entwined Wyatt had become in her private life. It was not a fleeting romance or a casual dalliance. It was a bond that reshaped her emotional world, offering her the attention, understanding, and companionship she had long been denied. Within the rigid confines of royal expectations, Wyatt represented freedom, affection, and human warmth, elements that Ferguson's royal existence had often lacked. Yet, even as the affair with Wyatt added color and passion to her life, it also carried consequences. Sources familiar with Ferguson's current circumstances painted a stark and unsettling picture. A report from Radar Online in October 2025 suggested that the former Duchess faced profound isolation with few allies willing to stand publicly beside her. People don't want to be associated with her anymore. A source explained, the truth is that she has nowhere to go and no one to go to. Her future is hanging in the balance. These words reveal a striking Jewissation. I'm the generational bridge because I'm still very young, in case you hadn't realized. Yeah, exactly. A woman who had once been thrust into global attention, now confronting uncertainty and the fragility of her social and financial position. The narrative of Ferguson's life, viewed through the lens of Wyatt's influence, demonstrates the power of personal connections to both elevate and destabilize Wyatt, offered her a refuge from the loneliness imposed by Andrew's long naval postings, the suffocating palace rules, and the constant gaze of the public and press. Yet the very relationship that provided emotional sustenance also became a source of controversy, rumor, and lasting scrutiny. It crystallized for the world the vulnerabilities and contradictions that defined Ferguson's life, the tension between personal desire and public expectation, between loyalty to family and the pursuit of emotional fulfillment. The saga of Ferguson and Wyatt shows how one private choice can explode into lifelong consequences. Andrew offered steady friendship, but Wyatt brought the passion she craved, something the rigid monarchy could never accept. And today, the shadows of that love still shape her fate, cloud her reputation, and bind her legacy to a scandal that refuses to fade. Steve Wyatt played a vital role in the scandal and the lasting consequences that reshaped Sarah Ferguson's royal life. But how did she survive the storm that followed, and what steps did she take to hold on to her place in the public eye? Now, let's explore the unstoppable and endlessly controversial life of Sarah Ferguson, Duchess who refused to disappear. Sarah Ferguson's life after her formal ties to the royal family tells a story as complicated, unpredictable, and fascinating as her early years in the spotlight. Long after the headlines faded, the photographs circulated, and the scandals appeared to settle, Ferguson remained impossible to ignore, a royal exile who refused to disappear quietly. Despite decades marked by public embarrassment, financial missteps, and ventures that often collapsed under scrutiny, she continued to reinvent herself. At times, her efforts were bold. Capturing attention with energy and audacity. At others, they spiraled into disaster, fueling tabloid fodder and public debate. Her contradictions defined her post-royal life. She was intensely loyal to her daughters, protective and affectionate. Yet her impulsive nature sometimes undermined even her most well-intentioned acts. She could charm with warmth and relatability, presenting herself as approachable and human. Yet those same qualities made her vulnerable to mistakes that drew fierce criticism. Admirers and critics alike recognized a woman who could captivate a room while simultaneously courting controversy, whose charisma could inspire fascination as easily as it provoked outrage. Ferguson's presence remained both magnetic and destabilizing, a living reminder that the rules of the monarchy could never fully contain her. Public perception of Ferguson evolved into something far more complex than mere scandal. She was no longer simply a duchess, nor only a tabloid figure. She became a symbol of what occurs when personal vulnerability collides with the expectations of an institution designed around perfection, restraint, and meticulous control. Each headline, each misstep, and each financial or personal gamble served to cement her position as an emblem of chaos within order, a human counterpoint to the rigidity of royal life in a world where discretion and quiet endurance are rewarded. Ferguson demonstrated how individuality, emotion, and flawed humanity could simultaneously enthrall and alarm. Sarah Ferguson's resilience slowly became the clearest thread running through her turbulent life. No matter how many times she stumbled or faced public backlash, she repeatedly found ways to return to the spotlight. She wrote books, toured the world for speaking events, supported charities, and appeared on television. Each effort a new attempt to rebuild her image. Even when her ventures collapsed or sparked fresh criticism, she refused to fade away. Unlike most royals whose paths are carefully controlled and protected, Ferguson lived openly before global judgment. She navigated opportunity and scandal with the same fierce determination, constantly reshaping herself in a world that never stopped watching. Ultimately, Sarah Ferguson's legacy is defined not by achievements or honors, but by the emotional storm she stirred and the royal rules she pushed to their limits. She stands as a vivid example of what happens when a flawed, passionate human being collides with an institution built on silence and control. Her life as a royal outsider is filled with contradictions, bold yet loyal, impulsive yet unbroken, troubled yet strangely magnetic, and because of these tensions, she remains impossible to ignore. Decades after her first scandal erupted, she continues to fascinate, confuse, and captivate a world still watching her every move. So, what do you think of Sarah Ferguson's scandal? Could she survive the scars that come with it? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.